We square?
All right, let's go roll.
John was nice enough to invite me out and come out and talk about kind of my favorite subject, which is ethics and philosophy and natural law and all this kind of stuff. I wrote a book about it called The Protector Ethic, came out in 18, and was kind of the summation of a long journey, as we've all been on. I've been trained in martial arts since I was 9, and so I'm in my 40th some year at this point. You learn a lot along the way. There's a lot of things that you take for granted too, and that's kind of what happened to me, and that's kind of what led me to write the book. About 20 years ago, I'd just gotten back, no, it was 25. And I had just gotten back from living in Japan. And so I've been out there, and I lived for several years training with the best people of this art. And I came back and I got invited to go and teach at what is called the Buyu Camp. And it was run by a guy named Jack Hoban, who's a Marine. And he's my mentor. And his mentor was also a Marine. He was a rifle platoon lieutenant on Iwo Jima. So quite a pedigree there. Anyway, we're at this camp in California, and it's beautiful, and the sun is shining, and there's got to be like 100 people there, 80 people, something like that. And Jack calls me out, and he says, "Jim, I want you to protect this guy from this guy." And I go, "Let me get this straight. This guy is going to attack my buddy over here, and it's my job to protect him from him?" "Yep, that's it." Fantastic, because I had a very simple strategy for that. I was just going to attack the shit out of this guy. Because I had just gotten back from Japan, remember. I was, hot, like wanting to make a name and show myself off and all of this kind of stuff. And that's what I did. This guy went after this guy. I intervened, grabbed this guy, tossed him in the dirt, twisted him up, stood back, let everybody take it in, went to check on my protectee, and he was gone because he'd been nabbed by a second secret attacker. If it had been real life, he would have been dead. So it was quite a lesson for me. I never forgot it. It just scarred itself into me. And it led me on this journey to figure out what real martial arts is all about, at least at the root of it. And that's where I came up with this idea for the protector ethic. That is my feeling, is that all martial arts boil down to that basic metric. That it's not about survival. A lot of people want to say it's about survival. I don't think it is. Unless you can survive in a kind of particular way, with honor and mercy. In the apocalypse, when it's all dystopian, who do you want to be found by? A pack of survivors or a pack of protectors? That's what it came down to me. I mean, that's a pretty stark idea. And so I started to think about the way that we formulate our understanding of movement and all this other stuff, and taking what I could understand from Bujinkan and applying it into what I called protectives training. And I came up with this idea of contexts. And there are certain contexts for movement. And I came up with 6 of them. You can escape, resist, extract, intervene, confront, and subdue. And of course, when you're confronting someone, you may have to kill them. And if you're subduing someone, you're out to save their life. Not necessarily not hurt them, but not take their life, which is the highest level that you can achieve in all martial arts training. And the reason for that is because it embodies every value of martial arts. Honor, self-discipline, whatever you want to consider a value in martial arts, it has to be compliant with this notion. Otherwise, it can't be moral, it can't be virtuous, it can't be ethical. All right? So what I thought we would do today, concerning that everybody's got training and all this kind of stuff, I thought I wouldn't go through each context. I thought we'd do the intervening context and how to intervene on someone else's behalf when they're being attacked, right? This kind of approach. So I need 3 people to come in, maybe Dan and John and great. And what's your name, sir?
Aaron.
Aaron, James, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, sir.
Maybe Dan, can you go after John, and then Aaron, right, Aaron?
Yes.
Is going to intervene and stop you, okay? Let's try that.
Well, I feel like I want to drag John through this.
All right. Let's see it again.
Come on with me, John.
Okay. One more.
Sorry, John. I know I'm going to die, but I'm going to have some fun on the way.
So you're John's buddy, right? And so you're starting here, and then Dan is going to come up and move through that space. Yep. Good. Okay, all right. So let's break into threes and just try what Aaron has thrown in. Okay? Just give it a go. Thanks. Dan is coming in to get my buddy here. And so what are the issues that we're dealing with? We're dealing with a time constraint. So he's coming in at a certain moment. So I have to intervene. I've got to move into that space at a certain time. That's more important than worrying about exactly what I'm going to do. Because what I'm going to do may or may not operate the way that I think it's going to go. So if I get in there first, if he comes in and I say, whoa, hang on, what are you doing? It doesn't have to be a big wrestling match, right? He comes in and, whoa, hey man, what are you doing? So all I'm doing is crossing his body. I'm just taking his elbow this way across. Bujinkan is a maneuvering art. We do all of the techniques and all of the kind of stuff, but we maneuver. We utilize the space as a kind of like throwing a net over someone. And so in this case, we don't have a specific technique that I would use. I would use something more in terms of maneuvering. So all I'm doing is scooping his arm, right? 1, 2, and pushing him, making him cross himself a little bit so that I can get some space in between him and him. Because I don't maybe know what's going on. Got to be careful when you intervene. You may think you know what the story is. There's plenty of stories out there of people intervening between men and women fighting, and the two of them turning on this person, right? The good guy, okay? So you got to be careful with the way that you approach that kind of stuff, because you just don't know, right? So a lot of times, even if it's very, like you know who the villain is, right? You don't want to get into a, you're right and you're wrong kind of a thing, because that may just egg them on more. Okay? If you want to stop violence from occurring, if you don't want to stop violence, like have at it and good luck, right? And see where it goes, right? But try this. I'm just on the side. He comes in. I'm going to move into this space, scoop the arm, get right up under, above the elbow, and just press him offline as I'm shielding him, right? Give it a go. Quickly, sir, could I borrow you for just a moment? Because you're the biggest guy here, so I just want to point this out. This is a feature of balance, and I just want to make the point of it. Just take a position. There you go. No. Just stand up straight. Yeah, just stand up straight. Put your feet. There you go. If I try to push on him from the side, he can resist me. If I try to push on him from the front, he can resist me. So the angles by which we're looking at this is perpendicular, this is perpendicular. There's this one angle, and it's a very interesting angle. It's very hard to resist. So if I press on a 45, like this, he can resist that. But if I cut that angle, and I get at this 22, it's very difficult for him to resist that. See that? So 90, 90, 45, all of those angles can be resisted. But then when I get to this 22, right there, it's very difficult for him to resist that.
I tried too.
Just pointing that out. It's on this sort of X, and it goes this way, and that way, and that way, and that way. It's just this weird, I don't know what it is, but it's just a very odd, skinny angle right there. So when you're looking to like move somebody quite big, we tend to think of it like, oh, I'll push him like this, or I'll push him like, sometimes just that little angle right there. Something that's just that little bit. Okay? Give it a go. I'm James, by the way.
I'm Scott.
Scott, nice to meet you. He comes in and he's got a hold of Aaron. This is just basic, because maybe I'm a little bit further off and I'm late or whatever, and I see this, right, maybe he's about to clock him or whatever. Now, how do we intervene with that? You know, what happens when it changes to the other side? These kinds of scenarios are things that you guys can do on your own. You can kind of create these little moments and sort of pick them apart and use your own teachings to, you know, move into these spaces and see how you might, you know, deal with it. There's lots of these kinds of things because we hear about this stuff all the time. I knew a guy who, you know, he was out and he was going to a bar and he saw this girl getting basically beat up by this guy, and approached him, got behind him, and just laid him out, let him have it, right? And then he turned around and 6 of his friends were there, and they laid him out. Whatever happened to the girl is unknown. And that was the point of it, wasn't it? That was the point of why he intervened to begin with. It was to protect her, not to, you know, Batman this guy, right? And so this is part of the issue of how we collectively come to understand what it means to protect others. Sometimes it doesn't mean being, you know, Chuck Norris, law and order, right? Sometimes it doesn't mean that. It means doing what you set out that causes you to intervene in the first place. This girl shouldn't be getting beat up. And so you intervene, you say, that's enough. That's it. And if you want to fight, you can fight me. But that's it. That way she's protected, right? Maybe the guy doesn't get what he deserves, but neither does she, right? She doesn't deserve that shit. So, comes in, he grabs Aaron here. So now, how do we deal with this? right? And lots of ways, right? Lots of ways to understand this. Lots of ways to figure how the grip works as opposed to how it doesn't work, right? What happens if he grabs his clothing, right? Grabs him by the collar. Now, this is different, right? Because I have to adjust for the grip. I have to adjust for whatever the circumstance is that we're really dealing with, right? This kind of a thing, right? So add a grab in, either like a wrist grab or collar grab or something like that, and see where you guys can figure that out, kind of untangle it. Go ahead. Excuse me, Dan. Comes in, grabs. Remember what we're trying to do here, right? As opposed to if I go and do something like this and then it brings him closer, correct. If he's got a weapon in the other hand, turns around, box cutter, something like that. So how you manipulate the space, right? Comes in, grabs. How you manipulate the space is important because I don't want to cause this to become worse than it is. That's where you got to know what your techniques are and how they operate in the space of things. Not just what they are and what they do, but where they wind up. Super important. Just a point. Go ahead. Yeah, something like this. This would be pretty sticky to try and get off in time. There's ways to do it. Here's one idea, right? So, right, and he's grabbed it. So if I come in here and then bring this up, that might be one way, right? And just come and cross this way and straight into there, okay? One more time. Right, yeah, right, this way. So I'm just trying to open this up. Another way might be to use like nerve points, where you come in and you just grab and just pinch him right at the top of the thing, or right here behind the tricep, and right at the top of the, right at the top. It's right here, right at the top of the pec. If you just grab your...
I'm going to do this.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So it's right there, right at the top of the pec. Yep. Right. Here's another one, right there, right on the side of the corners of the neck, basically. Right. So I'm coming across one, and I'm turning this two to try and get that off. That may not work. Right. That may not work because this might be entrenched in here. Right. He's got his knuckles buried under what he's doing. So open up this. That may not do it. Like this way. Open up, right? So how you interpret that and how you go about that, that's kind of how you want to dissect it, whatever, right? But the nerve points are an interesting thing. And we have like a knife or something, just something he can grip. Doesn't matter what it is. Be a bokken or a sword or anything. Oh, great. Perfect. Thank you. Right? So, here.
This one instead.
Here. Yeah. Right? So there's something in body reflexes called the righting reflex. You may have heard of it. You may have not heard of it. Righting, R-I-G-H-T-I-N-G, righting reflex. It's an instinct that the body has to right itself. So if you're walking along and you slip on ice, what happens? Whatever you're carrying, you lose it as your hands open up. Because your brain goes, whoa, we're falling, like this. So when you want to release this kind of a thing, you can use the righting reflex. I'm causing the body to lose balance, to become disoriented, and that loosens grip. So whether you're doing it with a knife or you're doing it in this case, he goes to grab him and I go, stop, like that. Now this can open this grip up a little bit because you're using these instincts against him. So that's just a point, okay? Have at it. Thank you. Questions, concerns? Anything like that? The double, this one? It's hard. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. And depending on how you answer that question, you're either going to make things more difficult or less difficult, right? Because if this person refuses to let go and you trip them up and they fall down, who's going with? Whoever this person is, right? And who knows what the circumstances are, right? Who knows what the circumstances are? I talk about this in the book. You know, you come out of a restaurant and there's a group of people fighting. What do? Do you charge in to the fray? Do you run back inside, call 911? What do? The answer is, at least my answer is, it depends. Who's fighting? Because if my significant is in the middle of that fray, you're damn right I'm jumping in. Maybe there's a police officer who's about to get overwhelmed. I'm jumping in, right? If I don't know any of these people, and this just looks like, you know, drunken Saturday night surfing or something, then I'm going to go and call the cops. So how we assess what's happening and the circumstances has a lot to do with how we answer those circumstances, right? How we assess things in general. About 15 years ago, I was getting my master's, and I was in a class where this woman, professor, was talking about agency and a lot of these kind of buzzwords and sort of highfalutin philosophical stuff. And she said, you know, a lot of people have great love of beauty and art, and if they were in a museum and it was on fire and they could only make one action, right? And you know, you can either save your favorite painting in the world, maybe a priceless Van Gogh or something like that, or wake up this sleeping guard. That would be a tough choice for some people. And so it was normal for her to equate the value of this painting with the value of this sleeping guard's life. No problem. Not to her. No issue at all. And that's kind of what a lot of this stuff comes down to. How we value the value of life determines how we value everything else. Absolutely everything else. How you determine the value of life determines how you value everything else. Everything comes back to that touchstone. Everything. So, my mentor's mentor was, like I said, this Iwo Jima Marine. And he survived Iwo Jima, of course, but it changed him. Because he said that the horror of Iwo Jima was so profoundly awful that a lot of the World War II vets, of course, nobody ever talked about this, came back with terrible PTSD. Like terrible stuff. Nightmares, the whole thing. He said there was a moment on Iwo Jima that he thinks saved his humanity. And he came upon a Japanese who was surrendering. Now, I don't know if you know this, but there was a take no prisoners rule on Iwo Jima. Both sides were doing it. Only 216 Japanese survived out of 22,000 soldiers on Iwo Jima. So this kid comes out of a cave. He's got a white flag. And Robert Humphrey, who's my mentor's mentor, sees this guy and he's going to go and take him in. And his guy, his sergeant next to him, says, "No, you're not. We're going to shoot him because he's booby-trapped, because he's going to blow up the moment that we touch him, whatever." And he said, "No, we're not. We're capturing him." And the sergeant says, "No, we're not," and leveled his M1 at him. And Humphrey went, "Yes, we are," and leveled his .45 at him. And they were going to kill each other over whether or not they ought to save this guy's life. Well, Humphrey restored order, went over to this kid, captured him. He wasn't booby-trapped. In fact, he had some small intel or something like that. And, probably 40 years later, Jack, at some event, asks Humphrey, "What's your proudest moment?" And that was what he cited. He said, with all the killing that had to be done, that was the one moment where I didn't have to kill. I didn't have to take life. I didn't have to shed this kid's blood. And he said, "I think that saved my humanity." It's just something to think about, because a lot of times in martial arts, I think we wind up going down rabbit holes that are very, very violent. And that's part of the training. But it's also part of the training to learn how to shape that, contour that, and maybe put it into better directions. Right? It's hard to do because we're all flawed, right? Hatsumi Sensei has this wonderful quote, and it's, "I'm not teaching you how to fight, I'm teaching you how to control evil." It's a beautiful quote. And I realized recently that it cuts both ways. It's not just external evil. It's also our own evil, our own darkness. Right? So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope we learned something. I'm eager to see what you guys have to say today. I appreciate the time. I really do. And thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.